Okay, you're live. Welcome to C4. It's March 2. Mayor Hodson and Commissioner Savas, this meeting is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you, Trent. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to C4.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Got that? We're good.
Heavy agenda. We'll try to get everyone out of here at 8:30. We'll see. We'll start with introduction. Oh, sorry, Pledge of Allegiance. You'll do the honor, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everyone. We'll move introduction, and I'll do the best to move through the screens here. We'll start with Mr. Myers.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Martin Myers. I'm the chair of the Redland Viola Fishers Mill CPO, and I'm also the CPO rep to C4. Good evening.
Thank you. I believe is it Councillor Stavengord?
Yes, it is. Good evening, everyone. Rebecca Stavengord, she, her pronouns, counselor for the city of Milwaukee.
Welcome. Mr. Gornick.
Paul Gornick, director at Oak Lodge Water Services.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Paul Savas, Clackamas County Commissioner. Good evening, everyone.
Councillor Callahan.
Good evening, everyone. I'm back up for Councilor Sherman, Josh Callahan from Happy Valley City Council.
Welcome. Mayor Buck.
Good evening, everyone. Joe Buck, Mayor of Lake Oswego. I serve as the Clackamas City's rep on JPAC and also I'm a member of MPAC.
Excellent. Is it Commissioner Marl?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Adam Marl, Oregon City Commissioner, and the new co-chair of the ITO Polling Diversion Subcommittee.
What? Mr. Milch.
Michael Milch, Mayor of Gladstone.
Mr. Cernak.
Kenny Cernak, board member for the Hamlet of Beaver Creek and Hamlet representative to C4.
Mr. Gronke.
Ed Gronke, Clackamas citizen rep to MPAC.
Mr. Brashear.
Good evening, everyone. Dwight Brashear. I am the transit director for SMART, the city of Wilsonville, and have the heart of a bus driver. So, there we go.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. Next, I've got Ms. Berry.
Hi, everybody. Carolyn Berry, City of Wilsonville, City Councilor.
Excellent. Ms. French.
Hi, Sherry French, Clackamas Riverwater.
Mr. Wood.
Todd Wood, Cam Area Transit, representing the small rural transit districts.
Councilor Pratt.
She indicated she could not speak.
Got there. Okay, perfect. Well, we got that you're here. Thank you, Councilor Pratt. And Mr. McLean.
I am here, Doug McLean, City of River Grove.
Sure. And I'm Brian Hodson, Mayor of Canby, co-chair to C4 and the executive planning group. And last but not least, Mr. Wilson.
Hi, thank you, Trent Wilson. I'm your C4 staff here today. We have a huge audience tonight. Thanks everybody for coming. I see Mayor Fitzgerald, so I'll allow you in just a moment. But I want to be really thankful to everybody who's coming tonight. You have a lot of staff from a lot of cities and a lot of other curious parties who are here to see the bigger presentation, which we've saved for the last because we think it will be the longest. And so we'll do my best to help you get through those early items. Thank you.
Thank you, Trent. Okay, I'll let you get Mayor Fitzgerald in and we'll give her 15 seconds of fame.
Here she comes.
Good evening, Mayor Fitzgerald.
Hello, sorry for the struggle to get in here, but I was getting off a phone call at another meeting, so thank you.
We'll give us quick introductions for the group here.
Okay, I'm not usually moving around this much. I am Julie Fitzgerald, Mayor of Wilsonville. Hello, everyone.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Been the usual busy day for mayors.
Yes, sounds like it. Okay. First, remember, take care of some business here. So take a motion to approve the minutes for February 2nd.
I move to approve.
All right. Josh, I'll give you the second there. Does that work for you, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any discussion, changes, questions? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor? Hands up on the screen.
Aye.
Perfect. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. Thank you. Moving into the C4 retreat, and that will be presented to us by our friend Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. So the C4 retreat, as we talked about in the last meeting, is currently scheduled for June 2 and June 3. That's a Friday and a Saturday. Just to keep in tradition with our older retreats that we've done in the past, we normally sort of convene around just after lunch, 1 o'clock or so at our location. We'll go through the afternoon working through items that you will select. And then on the following morning on Saturday, we'll finish up with other items that you'll select. Not a lot of survey responses from the link. So if you still have access to the link while we're meeting today, please go ahead and fill that out and I can give you a bigger update on what's in there towards the end of our meeting. So kind of an active meeting. Please go in and fill out that link. I'll try to include it here in our chat for you to be able to do it otherwise. I see that hand, Mayor Fitzgerald. So 1 second. Some of you have filled it out. So if that's what you're saying, it wasn't totally empty, but it was just a couple of responses. I want to make sure this full group has a chance to engage. Next week, we will be getting out the submission forms, the registration forms. We are currently calculating the cost for the retreat. As we talked about last month, we were looking at the Timberline Resort and the Resort at the Mountain, or Oregon Mount Hood Resort, I think it's what it's called now. Those were the two options. And I was making budget decisions on your behalf. It was way too expensive to meet at Timberline. Sorry, that would have been fun, but the room itself is like $4,000 a day. So spread out amongst you, it would be very expensive. Looking at the public dollar here, we got to make it a little cheaper for us, right? So we're going to do it at the place we've always done it, which is a great place. We have good rooms there. Right now, it looks like the cost to attend will be just under $180. And if you want a room, it would be just under another $190 or so. So it'll be about $400 total if you want to attend and stay at the resort. It'll be about under $200 if you just want to attend. And I would say this is open to everybody. Just a reminder that it doesn't have to be C4 members only. We really do invite your entire council to come and participate. We want this to be a true coordinating event so that the C4 committee is representative of all the jurisdictions across Clackamas County. We do that with our board. We invite our entire board, Commissioner Savis and Commissioner West, who will be the county's second commissioner moving forward here at these meetings. They'll both be invitational to their board. It's already held on their calendar, so we're working with them to do that. We encourage you to do the same for your city councils. We want to see everybody there. And our room's big enough to do that. We're holding 35 to 40 rooms at the resort, so we'll be plenty of space, and we will do that through us. So we'll have a registration form that comes through me and my colleague here at the county, and y'all can submit that way. We'll keep it as electronic as we can make it with of course, our public bureaucratic nuances as they come at us. So less than $400 is our goal. If you want to stay overnight, and if you're able to just do not stay overnight, we're trying to keep it under $200. And that's a little more expensive than it was pre-pandemic, but things have changed and it's been a few years. So it's a little bit of sticker shock for me, might be sticker shock for you, but it is also just, I think, the way things have changed in the last couple of years with the hotel industry, et cetera. So that's my update. Please fill out that form. I'll put a link in the chat so that you can fill out that survey if you haven't already, so that we can have a robust survey of what y'all would like to see at the retreat coming up this year. Any questions? Mayor Fitzgerald.
Thank you. My question was about the date, because this seems to be the same week that I know the city staff at Wilsonville and I will be going now to DC for some transit related conversations. Is that an issue for anyone else?
It's true that the JPAC retreat, if that's what you're talking about, or the JPAC visit to DC is happening that following week. So the C4 retreat is June 2 and 3. I believe the JPAC trip starts on June 5. That's a short weekend, admittedly. We had talked a little bit about that last month as well. But the priority of this group was to try to have the retreat as soon as possible and with an available date at the resort. So this is what we have.
Okay.
I mean,
we'll make it work.
Yeah, if you can confirm for me now. I mean, if the date's a problem, let me know now. We haven't put a down payment on anything yet. Is this the time?
We can make that work.
Thank you. And with that expectation in mind too, that a lot of people will be traveling and it's a short weekend, we'll do our best to give you the best agenda and make the time as efficient as we can. We know that everybody's busy. Okay, thank you. I have no other updates on this. And then I'll put that survey in the chat below. It's very short. It's like four or five questions. And then at the end of the meeting, I'll give you the results. Thank you.
Thank you, Trent. Appreciate it. Next up is the R1 Act city appointments. And then, so do we have city caucus piece that needs to occur, or has that been pretty much decided?
Yes, thank you. So recall at the last meeting, C4 nominated Councilor Pratt to serve in the R1 Act committee for the longer term vacancy that ends in 2025. And Councilor Sherman was interested in filling out the remainder of this shorter term, which ends here this June in 2023. He wanted to visit the R1 Act meeting before he made a decision. He has done that. He let the executive committee know this last month that he is interested in pursuing that. So this is really a formality to just recommend him to continue in this way for the next couple of months. You'll have another decision in June to extend him into the next term per the R1 Act bylaws. This is a city decision, so he's not able to make it tonight, but wanted to let you know that he is interested in continuing in that role to be official if the cities here agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Trent, for that recap. I appreciate it. Is there an action item, or does the group need to moving both of these forward to the act?
Yes, it's an action item. If the cities would make a vote amongst themselves, however you'd like to do that, hands or, no nays or whatever you'd like to do.
I could have Valerie and Councilor Sherman are in for the R1 Act for the cities. I see that Mr. Callahan is on board.
I would make that nomination, Mayor.
Thank you.
I will second that nomination.
Thank you, Mayor Buck. Appreciate it. So we have a first and a second. Let's see, those under the city umbrella. All those in favor? All right. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, we will make that recommendation to the R1 Act for their next meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. RTP call for projects approval. That's Mr. Williams, our senior education planner representative.
Yes, 1 second, please, while I bring Stephen in. Thank you. And just a quick correction to the agenda. He is actually a principal transportation planner. So I underrepresented his awesomeness, and he is here to share with you about the great coordination that's been happening at the county and the city level here. Stephen, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Trent. Good evening. I am, as has been mentioned, Steve Williams, Principal Transportation Planner with Clackamas County. Every 5 years, Metro is required under federal statute to prepare what's called a regional transportation plan for the future development of transportation facilities over the coming 20-year period within the metro area. And I think most of you are aware that sort of the northwest corner of Clackamas County is within the metro area, and the localities or governments that are within that area and are affected by the Metro Regional Transportation Plan are Gladstone, Happy Valley, Lake Oswego, Milwaukee. I'm starting to run out of forget the rest of my list here. For some reason, I can never keep them all in mind. So Gladstone, Happy Valley, Lake Oswego, Milwaukee.
Try West Lynn.
Not quite to West Lynn yet. Milwaukee, Oregon City is next. And after Oregon City comes now comes West Lynn. And then Wilsonville, Clackamas County, and North Clackamas Regional Park and Recreation District in CPRD. And so those are the cities, the county, and the special district that are eligible to apply for the regional transportation funds and that appear in our regional transportation plan. The main purpose of the regional transportation plan is to identify projects throughout the metro region, which are priorities for the local government and that are sponsoring those projects and are ultimately determined to be priorities for the regional government. So for the past 2 months, we've been working through a process at the staff level with the staff from the cities I just named and the county, of course, and NCPRD to identify the projects that should be included in this update of the Regional Transportation Plan. And this is the 2023 Regional Transportation Plan. We went through a process to identify those projects where we reached out to each of the eligible agencies, the cities, NCPRD, and the county. They had been given monetary targets for the amount of money that they could propose projects for. And though that money had been calculated by Metro based on the available revenue that they each had that was expected to be available for transportation improvements over the next 20 years. And so in the smaller localities, the number of the money was lesser because, smaller jurisdictions have lower revenue, and the larger jurisdictions, larger revenue. And then, as I noted, each of the jurisdictions was asked to identify their transportation projects that they wanted to have included in the regional transportation plan. So they identified those, they provided a list of those projects to us. We had to go through sort of a coordination process to make sure that the projects, the total cost of the projects that were being proposed was within the budget that we had been provided by Metro. And so, as I said, we worked through that whole process over the last couple of months and have arrived at a set of projects, about 200 of them, that are proposed to be included in the regional transportation plan for the metro area of Clackamas County. This evening, we want to give you an opportunity to look at the project list if you want to do so, ask any questions that you might have. The list of projects are in your packet, and they start on page 11. And also in your packet is a staff report with more information about this process. And then finally, the second thing that we need to do tonight is that there is a draft letter in your packet. Is actually the first thing in the packet. It's on page 6, and it is what we call a letter of endorsement. Your action this evening won't finally approve anything to go into the regional transportation plan, but by approving this letter this evening, you are endorsing those projects to go into the draft regional transportation plan, which will move on in the process through public review, through analysis and modeling by Metro staff. And ultimately, it will come down to a point where a draft final version of the plan will come back to C4 for approval later in the summer. And then after Clackamas County, the other 2 counties, the city of Portland, all approve that plan, it will ultimately go to JPAC and to the Metro Council for approval in November of this year. So this evening's action is an important one. These projects need to be endorsed so that we can move forward in this process, but you will have other opportunities to review these project lists, to review the regional transportation plan, and make any changes or amendments that you might want to. So that's my report, Trent. I'll take questions if there happen to be any.
Thank you very much, Steve. So just to reiterate, this has gone through the normal C4 process. There's been a presentation to the C4 Metro subcommittee. All of your staff have worked on this as well, helping Steve create this list for the cities and county. There is a ODOT list as well. It's different. There's a TriMet list as well. It's different. You're not making decisions about those today. You're making decisions about the city's list and the county's list jointly as a coordinating body. And so
Smart has a list as well, Trent.
Thank you. And so this letter here is your decision for tonight. I'm looking for your recommendation to approve, or if you have questions for Steve or about the letter. Thank you.
Hey, Trent. Thank you. It's great to see you. Are there any comments or questions regarding what's either the letter or the projects that in the packet for this evening? There's a lot there. I know everyone's already heard a couple of conversations on these. Quite an extensive list. There's quite the extensive list of needs throughout Clackamas County and the cities. Yes, Councilor Stafford.
Not so much a question, just wanted to comment on the amazing amount of work that this has been on the part of Clackamas County staff and the city staff. I appreciate the briefings and the additional information, and I don't have any questions at this time, but just wanted to say a big thank you.
And the years that I've been on here and this has come around, the work that goes into this is immense on the cities and the county's part. You know, we go in and we've gotten better, I think, as a county and as a committee to go in swinging, and we've actually been able to see some more fruits of I think us being much more deliberate in what we want in this conversation. So thank you to the staff for sure. Mr. Myers, question, comment?
I want to just echo the sentiment of all the work that's gone into this. And I also want to say specifically to the county and to the county staff, our appreciation for getting this out to the CPOs in time for me to communicate it out to the other CPOs within the metro area that are going to be directly impacted by these. And unless there are other further comments, I would move for its approval of the letter, approval of the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I appreciate that. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great. Thank you, Counselor. So moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Questions? Yes, all those in favor, put your hand in your windows there for me. All right. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the letter and list pass. We'll march forward into, I think, what will be a very heady and intense conversation. All of you. So, great. Thank you all. Thank you. Steve already took off. So, oh, there you are, Stephen. Thank you, sir. Appreciate all the work of you and your team.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mayor Hodson. And I'm sure I will probably see you again in a few months. We take the next step.
Okay. Thank you, sir. On the agenda is the I-205 tolling environmental analysis briefing. And Delia, once again, hello, how are you this evening?
Doing great, Trent. And hope Mandy, hopefully Mandy's audio is working as well.
Yeah, I'm Mandy's on here. We got Jody, the whole group.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about the EA.
Let's do it. I think we have someone bringing up some slides for us today, so appreciate you having us here.
Jody, you should be good to go. Let me know if you need any help.
Yes, I'm just making sure we do have a video to share. I'm just making sure I'll be able to share the audio as well. There's a share sound feature, but I'm not able to use that right now.
It might be for the webinars that I've turned that off. So I'm sorry we didn't talk about the videos ahead of time. I don't know if I can update that mid-meeting.
Okay.
Is there a link that you can put in that we can watch afterwards? For that
Yes,
video?
we can definitely share a link with the group out.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if everyone can see the slides, we can go ahead and get started. That works. Great. Well, good evening and thank you for having us here tonight to share an update on the Oregon Toll Program. For the record, my name is Della Mosher and I am the Deputy Director of ODOT's Urban Mobility Office, and I'm joined here tonight by Mandy Putney, who is the Urban Mobility Office Strategic Initiatives Director. Appreciate the opportunity to be here to share some information on the I-205 toll project environmental assessment. And as most of you know, ODOT has been working on this information for a few years and has been working closely with staff from your jurisdictions over the past couple of years to develop the analysis. Now these analyses are compiled in one report for review and comment. And in a little bit, Mandy will be able to talk more about the environmental assessment. But before we get there, I would like to first provide some context about how this project fits within ODOT's urban mobility strategy. Next slide, please. So I think we can all agree that we have some significant safety issues that challenge our ability to get around in the Portland metro region. And here you can see, it looks like there were about 23,000 crashes in a 4 to 5 year period on the I-5 and I-205 corridors. Most of those crashes occur in bottleneck or congested areas or at some of our outdated interchanges, which really puts our travelers' safety at risk. We also know that we do not have a reliable lifeline route in the case of a Cascadia level earthquake event. And so without a seismically resilient Interstate 205 corridor, we won't be able to get services and supplies into the region, nor will folks in the region be able to exit the area in the case of a major event without upgrading bridges and the facilities on the I-205 corridor. Next slide, please. We also know that over the past few decades, our ability to collect revenue for transportation investments has decreased while the cost of delivering transportation projects to construction has increased. The gas tax has not been able to keep up with inflation, and we all know that that has been exacerbated over the last few years. And then we also have vehicles that are much more fuel efficient. We have electric vehicles, which are good for our climate goals, but also have impacts to revenue. So in general, we can see, and I'm sure you're experiencing in your local jurisdictions, that the amount of the gas tax that we're receiving isn't keeping up with the increased costs. And so really we have a decline in revenue and an increase in costs in order to invest and modernize our transportation system. So next slide. Just a little bit of history here, and I'll quickly jump through this slide and start in 2017 with House Bill 2017, which was a legislative package that provided more than $5 billion in transportation investments across the state. And in the Portland metro region, that bill included construction dollars for the Oregon 217 project, as well as the I-5 Rose Quarter project. That legislation also noted that for the I-205 corridor in the southeast portion of the Portland metro region, for the agency to look to tolling as the source of revenue to fund construction of those seismically resilient improvements. This assignment was further reinforced in 2021 by financial tools provided in House Bill 3055, which allows ODOT to be able to deliver the urban mobility strategy core projects. So next slide, please. Here you can see the map of the urban mobility strategy core projects. Starting in the top, you can see the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. Down below there is the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project, Oregon 217 to the west, Boone Bridge on I-5 down in the southern or bottom part of the map, and then the I-205 Improvements Project over to the right. The urban mobility strategy also includes the regional toll program, which is shown in the dark blue on the I-5 and I-205 corridors, as well as the I-205 toll project, which is denoted in the light green along the same limits as the I-205 improvements project. The goal here in the urban mobility strategy is to comprehensively address congestion using all the tools provided by House Bill 2017 and House Bill 3055, so that we are not just pushing bottlenecks around, but by making strategic investments to alleviate those congested areas, as well as addressing statewide climate goals along the way and incorporating equity differently than we have in the past. The urban mobility strategy also includes strategic investments in walking, biking, rolling, and transit within each of the core projects, as well as standalone investments. And I see we have one of our SMART representatives here, so I'll point out the SMART ODOT bus on shoulder investments you can see on this map near the southern portion of Interstate 5. The I-205 toll project is the key component of the comprehensive urban mobility strategy. And on February 21st, the I-205 toll project environmental assessment was published for public comment. This comment period for an EA, or environmental assessment, or EA, like this is typically around 30 days. However, in response to requests from participating agencies and other stakeholders to extend the comment period, ODOT recently received approval from our federal partners to extend the comment period on the I-205 toll project environmental assessment to 60 days, now ending on April 21st. So without further ado, we'll move into the topic at hand this evening. And we're hoping to provide a short video ahead of Mandy's presentation, which will walk through the topics covered in the EA. However, if the audio won't work, we can post it in the chat. Maybe Jody, you can give it one try if you think it might be successful, and if not, we'll go ahead and move forward with Mandy's portion of tonight's presentation. Doesn't sound like the audio's coming through, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide for Mandy. Thank you, Jody.
Great. Thanks, Jody. Thanks, Stella. And it sounds like we'll be able to put the link to the video in the chat, as we also have a variety of other videos on the website. So once you go to see that one, you can link to more if you're interested. The video is much more appealing and interesting than me, so I'm sorry that you didn't get that intro to my slides. But I am Mandy Putney with the Urban Mobility Office. Della introduced me earlier, and one of my responsibilities as part of the Strategic Initiatives Director is to serve as the project director for the I-205 toll project as it's going through the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, process. NEPA is a federal policy that guides processes that agencies must go through to complete environmental analysis in a public setting with public comment opportunities prior to decision making. So this is required for projects that receive federal funding or that have a federal nexus, such as projects that take place on the interstate. And in this process, you must evaluate community and environmental, potential community environmental benefits and impacts, and provide that information for the public and decision makers. And the process can include the preparation of an environmental assessment, which is the document that we're here to talk about today. And in this document, we look at a future year, and our future planning year is 2045. And in that future scenario, we're comparing what would happen if we do the project to what would happen if we don't do the project. And the NEPA language is the build and the no build alternative. So next slide, please. For our environmental assessment, we are looking at the I-205 toll project, and that toll project includes variable rate tolling on all lanes of 205 at the Abernathy Bridge and the Tualatin River Bridge in order to provide a better and more reliable trip on the corridor. And to use the toll revenue to build out the capital improvements needed on this 7-mile section of 205 between Stafford Road and Oregon 213, including adding the third travel lane in each direction, both northbound and southbound, and providing an earthquake-ready corridor, knowing that we're, by some folks' standards, past due, perhaps for a Cascadia level seismic event. We're thrilled that the environmental assessment is finally here. I've been before you and in this venue and many others saying it was coming soon. It's here. It's been a lot of work by our team, as well as the staff at many of your jurisdictions, who have helped us, 2+ years ago, determine the methodologies that we would use to start with the evaluation, and have reviewed much of the analysis as we move forward. So this is a great milestone for us, and we really do appreciate the partnership and staff time that have been used to get to this date. Next slide, please. This is a map of the 205 toll project area, again, between Stafford Road and Oregon 213, showing here the bridges that would be seismically improved or replaced, as well as traveler information signs that would be added. We did add quite a few traveler information signs to this corridor in 2020. We wanted to have those up well before construction would start. These are the last 2 that are remaining. And then we also will implement some sound walls in the corridor. The tolling, again, would be captured at the Tualatin River bridges and the Abernathy Bridge, which is not labeled here, but would be right over the Willamette River. Next slide, please. And then this one here is a little bit more detailed to specify the build alternative and the no build alternative that we are looking at, again, in year 2045. For the build alternative, it would be to complete all of those capital improvements you just saw on the previous slide, the third lane for that full 7-mile stretch, as well as all the seismic upgrades. And then the no build alternative would look at no tolling and no improvements in that section of I-205. Next slide, please. Our analysis looks at I-205 as well as the local system. My first slide here is I-205 specific. So when we are able to pair variable rate tolling with the third lane and the other improvements on this corridor, we see significant benefit to travel on I-205, up to 50% faster travel times in the evening and up to 25% faster travel times in the morning. Along with this is a significant reduction in congestion. If we do nothing, we'd be looking at more than half the day of in 2045 with congestion, and we're able to drop that to between 0 and 2 hours with the project. As there's less congestion and with that third lane, we drop the number of crashes, increasing safety by about 26%. Currently, as 205 narrows from 3 lanes to 2 lanes in this 7-mile section, it creates quite a bottleneck area that causes operational problems as well as safety problems. And we're able to address both of those with our project. Reduced congestion is good for the environment, as well as increasingly fuel efficient cars. We do see that the project would lead to better air quality with 9% reduction in air pollution in the near term and 12% in 2045. The congestion and mobility improvements, as well as the environmental improvements, are also great for the economy. We'd see 105 million in annual net economic benefits from 2027 to 2045. And 9.8 million in annual cost savings for the freight industry, which is connected directly to the better trip reliability and reduced congestion. Next slide, please. We also looked at other corridors, not just I-205. We do see that on many of those corridors, we see travel improvements. You can see that for Oregon 213, as well as I-5 and on Oregon 99E as well, especially in the AM northbound conditions. So again, the details of all of this information, both for I-205 and other corridors, can be found in our environmental assessment. Next slide, please. My next couple slides are going to talk about mitigation, and mitigation during the National Environmental Policy Act process, or NEPA, is a process where, as the project is developed, we look to reduce, minimize, and then mitigate impacts that we find. And in our document, we were looking at impacts, again, both on I-5 and the local system. The green outline here on this map shows our area, our study area, our area of potential impact. And we developed that boundary with a great deal of input from many of your staff. It was a little bit smaller our first go around, and then we extended it down to Canby based on the input that we received. We also looked at intersection level information for 50 specific intersections. And again, those intersections were selected with input from your jurisdictions to understand how they might function in the future, both with and without the project. And we found that of the 50 that we evaluated, 40 of them would need mitigation, that there would be some impact there. And mitigation is basically a solution to solve that impact that would appear. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. I do want to highlight that we have an interactive map online so that folks can zoom right into the area they're most interested in and look at all of this information in more detail. Next slide, please. We looked at intersection analysis and information both for the year 2027 as well as 2045. This first map shows the intersections in 2027. And you can see here that most of the intersections that we evaluated don't show that there will be impacts with the project. And so again, this is comparing doing the project to no build or not doing the project. And there are some intersections that do worsen with the project. Those would be the green circles. And then there are other intersections that would be failing with or without the project. And with the project, they get some degree worse. So those are the blue circles here. And again, for all of the projects that are either the intersections that are the blue or the green circles, those are the ones that would require solutions or mitigation. We propose mitigation for each of these corridors or locations in the environmental assessment, and are asking for feedback on that specifically, as well as the rest of the information in the document. Once we have finalized our mitigation, it becomes part of the project, and then it's a requirement that comes with the Federal Highway Administration approval at the end that we complete the mitigation projects as we complete the full project itself. Next slide, please. This map shows the intersection analysis for 2045. Again, the same symbols here. The orange circles are the intersections that were evaluated that are not impacted by the project. And then the blue circles are the intersections that would be failing without the project, but get marginally worse with the project. And then the green are intersections that are failing because of the project. And again, all of the 2045 intersections that would require mitigation have options provided to solve those problems, and then would move forward with the full project build out. Next slide, please. This slide shows examples of the mitigation that are provided. We did work with technical staff at your jurisdictions as we were thinking through mitigation options. And again, the mitigation is tied to the specific either operational or safety issue that was found at that intersection. So we have a variety of things ranging from improving mobility by widening sidewalks or bicycle paths, improving transit signalization, changing the roadway striping, perhaps adding in a roundabout instead of a signal, and thinking about bus priority on certain streets or sections of streets. We also have a commitment for ongoing monitoring of diversion. We've started talking to the C4 subcommittee on diversion about the monitoring plan. And so that will be the work ahead of us as we think through what will need to be monitored, the data that will need to be, that's already collected by a variety of jurisdictions, what the gaps might be, and then how to move forward with the specifics of that process. Next slide, please. I wanted to talk just a little bit more about economics. There is a chapter on economics in the document, and we do see that there would be some things worthy of talking about, including the jobs that are created by the construction of that 7-mile project area. We also look at household budgets and transportation costs. Transportation costs include a variety of things, including auto-related costs, as well as the toll cost. We do find that there would be about a 1% increase in transportation costs with the project, and that the increased costs associated with the toll would be offset by the benefits associated with shorter travel and less gas that would be needed. So people would be having less stop and go travel, shorter travel times, less congestion, and all of those things have an economic benefit associated with them. And we also talk about the fact that there will be a low income program developed for this project. Next slide, please. The low-income toll program has been developed with a lot of input from the public as well as our Equity and Mobility Advisory Committee. A center point of that is considering how a discount or credit program could be used for households that are equal or below 200% of the federal poverty level. This was just over about $55,000 for a family of 4 in 2022. I think it might be a little closer to 60,000 now in 2023. We're currently working to develop this program now. We have had conversations with others that are working on low-income programs, and also input again from our Equity and Mobility Advisory Committee that when we do this program, we want to make sure that we have as robust participation as possible. So that we'll need to have very good and strong outreach so that people will be aware that there is a program, to think about how to encourage enrollment, to make sure that it's an accessible program for both in terms of language variability as well as technology, to make sure that there are options for folks that don't have credit cards or unbanked, and also to build in a way to continue to evaluate the success and make adjustments as needed. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk a little bit now about, I just mentioned kind of how the low-income toll program is the result of input that we've done. I want to share a little bit about the outreach that we've completed prior to the environmental assessment, and then I'll move into what we're planning for our public comment period. We have been doing work with the public, and also a variety of boards and council presentations such as this for more than the past 2 years. We've done an extensive number of briefings and presentations. We've also done tabling events pre-pandemic, and they're starting up again now that we're able to add them back in. We've done some specific focus groups, including focus groups with certain language or cultural focuses, and done online surveys and questionnaires where we've had very robust responses, including a high level of response from Clackamas County residents. We also have a 24/7 phone line, as well as ability to receive comments by email and from our website. So pretty robust and ongoing public outreach efforts to date. Next slide, please. The feedback that we've received so far has been instrumental in the development of our project and the centering of equity as we move forward. I mentioned our Equity and Mobility Advisory Committee. That group has been in existence for more than 2 years and has developed the equity framework that's used by the toll program and this project specifically, and shares the guiding principles and foundation for how we can think about both process equity as well as outcome equity. So how to make sure that we're fully engaging a variety of communities as we move forward with the project, and also what are the performance measures that we're going to be evaluating, and that feedback is directly seen in kind of the measures that we used for our environmental assessment, and also in terms of development of the low-income toll program, which I've covered so far. We've heard about the need to continue to think about public transportation and multimodal options, and are currently working with a variety of public transportation providers to develop a public transportation strategy for the region. We've heard a high level of interest in keeping toll revenue in the corridor where it is collected. This project is very clear that the revenue that comes in from tolling will go directly back into improvements needed in the corridor. And we've heard that there's a need to evaluate the local system and to address negative impacts if they result from diversion. And our environmental assessment does provide options for how to address those negative impacts. Next slide, please. We have a variety of ways that we can accept comments during the public comment period. And we are hoping that the comments that come in are as specific as possible about any section that's included in the document. And that, NEPA is a document that presents analysis and information. We have a reader-friendly document, just under 200 pages, that has a lot of graphics and images so that people can take in information both in the text or through visuals if that's easier for them. We also have, as I mentioned, a variety of videos and the interactive map online if that works better. And then we can take comments through our website, through the comment form. We will have paper comment forms at our in-person events. Emails can be sent to I-205-TOLL-EA@odot.oregon.gov. We have a phone number if that's easier, or people don't have email access. We also will have an online public hearing. And if folks are not able to do comments by phone or email or the online hearing, we will have an in-person comment opportunity where people can go and have their comments transcribed by a court reporter. So trying to use all the tools that are available for us as we move forward. And you see the new dates here at the bottom of this slide. The comment period will go through April 21st. Next slide, please. We have 2 public webinars that are planned so that there can be an opportunity to understand what sort of information is covered in the environmental assessment, how to find information, and to answer clarifying questions. We also will have a webinar for our participating agencies. Many of you around this table have, many of your agencies have decided to be a participating agency in the formal NEPA process for this project. I mentioned the public hearing scheduled for April 4th. And then we do have a variety of in-person tabling events that we'll do. We've worked on those locations with our equity specialist and our community engagement liaisons to hopefully reach communities that maybe have been excluded in the past or are less likely to attend a bigger public meeting. Next slide, please. Once we receive these comments, they'll all be evaluated and reviewed. And then we'll work with FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, our partner in this process, to develop responses to comment themes as we understand them. And then we will determine, based on the results of the analysis and the input, how to revise the environmental assessment. And at this point would expect to publish our revised environmental assessment in the summer. And then we would be hoping to receive a finding of no significant impact from the Federal Highway Administration. They will make their determination at that time. It is a federal decision in terms of moving forward or concluding the analysis in the environmental assessment. And again, that decision would be expected in the summer of 2023. Next slide, please. Here's the overall timeline for our project. We are at the circle midway through the top line and looking to the revised environmental assessment as the next milestone. And then again, we are looking at implementation of tolling in this quarter in late 2024. We'll continue to work with our Equity and Mobility Advisory Committee. They are meeting regularly now, and ongoing public input will continue both during this formal comment period as well as throughout the rest of the project. I think that's my last slide tonight. I really appreciate your time, and Della and I are both welcome your questions now.
Well, Della and Mandy, thank you very much for once again coming and keeping us in the loop on all this going on. I know that EA was very much anticipated, and I know that a lot of us have been poring over it and having a ton of conversation on it. I know that hands are going to be going up here, so I'm going to take my crack right out of the gate here. And so when we talk about initial analysis being done on the EA here, depending on the feedback and what's found out or what feedback comes in, do we know an estimated time that would need additional analysis?
I'm not sure if I quite understand your question, Mayor Hudson.
Sorry about that. A bit convoluted. So if the EA needs to go back on your last slide there, you talked about it, there may be additional analysis that needs to be done based on feedback or whatever is decided on this point. Do we know how much more time an additional analysis would take for this project?
We don't know, and we feel like we've done very comprehensive analysis so far. Depending on comments, there might be refinements to the mitigation projects or refinements to other aspects of the analysis. But we have done all of the analysis that is required to do and have worked out that analysis and the methodologies with our participating agencies so far. So I don't know. I don't want to speculate on what we hear, but we will be responsive to the input that we get.
So when the I-5 congestion pricing and / tolling gets underway, that project will also go through an environmental analysis, correct?
Absolutely. We just started that process for the regional mobility pricing project. So we'll have the same sort of milestones of a draft environmental assessment and a revised.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Savas, you're first, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Della and Mandy, for the presentation. I see you have really, the build and no build, and I gather by the terminology used tonight saying the project is really essentially the combined project of the construction project as well as the tolling project, correct?
The toll project includes both aspects, tolling and the third lane and the seismic improvements.
Right. And I, this probably is not new to you, Mandy, but I think for the sake of people that are listening tonight, my discomfort with this is it really doesn't give any data to demonstrate what the benefits of the construction project, repairing or replacing the bottleneck, eliminating the bottleneck, plus all the intersection on-ramp, off-ramp changes that are all being made directly associated with the widening. So that's what's not really clear, and we're not going to have that data apparently because of the way this was evaluated. If I'm mistaken, please jump in and correct me. But I'm just curious, because of that, how do we attribute when you say, or it's demonstrated in the analysis that where the benefits are for the 26% reduction in crashes, for example, how do we know that where that benefit was derived from? Was that derived from the tolling, or was that derived from the widening, right? And I think that's what's obscure. It's not really clear. And can you just speak to that? I have one other question.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner, for the questions. I will say that the project is both. We can't have one without the other at this point, and we've analyzed the project as such. So the crash reduction is related to doing both the variable rate tolling and the third lane and the other improvements.
Okay. Now, the other thing, and again, I'm still reading the EA, still have a long ways to go. But the other thing that it seems to be that there was not analysis of the traffic accidents off the facility. So currently there's traffic accidents as a result of diversion today, and in the past. And your analysis does or does not evaluate traffic accidents off the facility as a result of diversion, yes or no?
It does, Commissioner. We look at safety on the local system as well, and the mitigation, the intersections that we've looked at as impacted or potentially impacted are both because of operational or safety issues. And the mitigation projects that are proposed include safety mitigation as well as operational mitigation.
So what attachment of the EA, with all those attachments or technical memorandums, which one would identify that? Where do I
I'm
need to go?
happy after this to follow up with the pages that we talk about the transportation analysis in the EA, as well as the appendix location to go to. I can't recite that right now.
Okay. Could you do me a favor and send us all your PowerPoint for tonight? It wasn't the same PowerPoint, or it wasn't the same materials that were in the packet tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanas. Councilor Pratt.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yay. I just have a few questions regarding the public outreach on this. First of all, thank you for extending the comment period to 60 days. I'm wondering when that was changed.
Just today.
Okay.
You're the first to hear. I mean, we sent out an email late this afternoon, but you're the first to hear it.
Yeah. Okay. And what I'm wondering, when I went, I wanted to tell people that they can go and look at this. And if you type in ODOT tolling or I-205 tolling, you get right to it. But I still cannot find it on your homepage. And, like in our city, if we're doing outreach, we would have a banner across our homepage. So I'm wondering why I just cannot find it on your homepage and why you don't make it very easy to locate this.
For the ODOT homepage?
Yes.
Great suggestion. And I'll see what I can do about that tomorrow.
Okay. And then my other question was like on your project overview, you had that in 5 languages, and the EA is in 1 language. And I'm just wondering why you didn't at least put it in Spanish.
We have materials available. The fact sheet is available in multiple languages, and the EA upon request will be available in the language requested.
Okay, thank you.
I'm failing here. Thank you, Councilor Pratt. Councilor Lewis.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thanks to Councilor Pratt for addressing the new comment period window. My agency did send a letter requesting a longer extension. 15 days isn't nothing, but the length of this 200 pages is a lot. And when I look at the different levels of input that are needed, you're looking for community level input, but you're also looking for technical input, and an additional 2 weeks. I don't know if that's going to get you the depth of technical input that you've requested. So while I do see that you moved the dates, probably because you had to, because you didn't have the all languages materials prepared on the first date that you published. I would still push for even longer to really reflect community input. My question for tonight, I did appreciate your description of mitigation as required through federal regs. But if you could speak to how this document sets a floor for mitigation, because we know that it's not one and done and that we can model for a first round, But how does this document show that there will be future mitigation efforts and dedicated funds from this bucket for the work that our local communities are going to need in order to absorb the impacts?
Great, thanks, Councilor Lewis. There are a bunch of points there, and I would like to answer your mitigation question and also just let you know in terms of the technical review and analysis. We have been working with staff from your agencies for the past 2 years on the technical analysis. They helped us determine the methodologies that we would use, the criteria that we would use, the performance measures we would use. And we've had a modeling group that's been meeting during that time to review findings and data as we've had it. So we've relied heavily on Metro modeling staff to run the model for us. And then a lot of your staff to review our information as we've had it. And we provided actually the draft of the transportation technical report, which is probably the biggest of the appendices to all of your staff many months ago for review. So we've tried really hard to share all the information as we've had it coming in so that it wouldn't be a wait until we got to this point to see everything for the first time. And then in terms of the translated materials, I will clarify that we did have translated information available for review the day that we posted the document for public review and comment. We have added to that suite of materials since then, and we'll continue to work with our community engagement liaisons on the best way to work with a variety of communities that speak languages other than English. So we're very committed to doing that. And then in terms of mitigation, I mentioned the monitoring process and program, and that is a key part of the monitoring program is to determine what we want to evaluate and the frequency of that so that if we see things come up that we didn't expect, we'd be able to address them and we'd have a process in place for doing that. And we had at a recent regional toll advisory committee meeting had a brief conversation about this and a commitment from the ODOT director that would be done and implemented and costs would be covered as needed if things came up as we moved along. So that's the work to do as we move forward, is thinking about what that process is and all the people that would be involved in that evaluation and review.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that's probably all you can say. And the language materials information I had was from the RTAC meeting on Monday. So 2 different answers, same week, but I also respect that you're closer to this project. So thank you for that.
Councilor Lewis, thank you. Councilor Callahan, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Putney. I appreciate the presentation tonight. I'm obviously new to this panel, but seeing that information highlights a lot of the stuff that we talk about within our city and with our staff. Other than the other questions that have already been asked by all the great people inquiring, my only additional question was if we could possibly get a red line version of the EA and the technical documents so that we can kind of not be reading it for the first time again and see the changes to kind of focus in a little quicker and review those changes so that we can follow that rather than reading the document for the first time again. Is that possible if we requested that?
We have a lot of drafts of the document. I don't know that would make it easier for you to read. We'd be happy to meet with your staff and talk about changes. The version of the transportation technical report that went out a couple of months ago didn't change significantly. So happy to maybe work with your staff on what would be the best approach, but yeah, the various iterations and commented versions, I think, would be actually harder.
Okay. No, I appreciate that and respect that. I've changed documents like that myself. I guess the only other comment that I would make and maybe a request would be for a little more detail about the mitigation. You know, a lot of these areas that are going to be having the vehicles diverted, we foresee that as being a really big problem. And so, you know, we'd love to have more explanation more overview of where the money's going to come from, vehicles avoiding 205 and running down 82nd, and all the other areas where all this diversion will impact our local communities. So at any point that we can get more information, we would really appreciate that as well.
I will add that to my follow-up, Councillor, in terms of kind of pinpointing the specific locations of the document to look at the proposed mitigation, so that you can see that for each of the locations that I showed on my overview maps. We do have that available.
Great, thank you so much.
And then the other thing I'll just say is that NEPA is not a policy document. The environmental assessment is not a policy document, and it's also not a financial document. So there is a requirement that ODOT will pay for the project and pay for the mitigation. But in terms of NEPA purposes, ODOT can end up doing that in a variety of ways in the future. So we don't outline that at this point. We're really trying to figure out what will the mitigation be, so then we can move forward with implementation and details, including financing.
Got it. Understood. Thank you.
Mayor Buck from the Fish City of Lake Oswego.
Thank you, Mayor Hodson. Thank you, Mandy Della, for the presentation and the info. Does this EA just look at, the current built environment, or as it looks to the future, is it forecasting out, future development?
Absolutely. Great question. Thank you, Mayor Buck. We are looking at year 2045, and we use Metro's regional model as the basis of our analysis. So that does include forecasted population, land use growth, as well as changes to the transportation system based on the regional transportation plan.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I mean, specifically, we got the three-party agreement in the Stafford Basin, which is triggered by this project. So is the triggering of development within the Stafford Basin specifically factored in here, since these two things are tied together?
I would have to follow up with you about what the assumptions are in the regional model for that area specifically. Okay, well, I think we should definitely do that. And then do we have? I know you just mentioned, Councillor Callahan, that it's not a financial document. Has ODOT assigned though any cost to the mitigation that's been proposed by the EA? Has that been expressed in terms of any kind of dollar amount or as a percentage of the project? Nothing. No, not yet. And we have options presented here, our proposed mitigation. So what we're hoping to hear is input on those projects. And once we finalize those projects, then we'll move forward with more detailed information and analysis. Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you, Mayor. So first of all, I just want to second what Councillor Pratt said about making sure that this is accessible. When I go to look this up, it takes me to the homepage. Then I have to go halfway down the page, and there's the read the environmental assessment button. I click that, it takes me to a different page. Then I have to go a full page worth down to get the I-205 toll project environmental assessment hyperlink. And so I just want to again stress that we should probably making that a lot easier for folks to find, so that they can, in this, even though it has been extended, relatively short window, be able to access the materials a lot easier. My question comes from, so you had talked about how there has been a modification that all the money that comes in is going to be spent in the area. I remember hearing that last year at one of our subcommittee meetings. You had mentioned that the OTC had made had a vote on that to decide that. But my question is, once these improvements are done, does that money just keep collecting and we wait for another problem and we use those dollars? Or has the OTC indicated at all whether they plan to stop that, or could you just provide some insight as to what happens when all of these improvements are done? Has the OTC given any indication on what they would like to do?
Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate the questions. And I will say, you're right, the Transportation Commission is the tolling authority for the state and will be responsible for setting rates and establishing policy related to tolling and toll collection. So those actions have not happened yet. There has been some policy framework that was recently updated as part of the Oregon Highway Plan. We'll be looking for some decisions about tolling for this project specifically about 6 months before tolling begins, before tolls are collected. So we don't have the answers to those questions right now.
Great. Councilor Scavenger.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question that pertains to a priority bill, I think, that was announced last week by Rep. Hartman's office, House District 40, and it is around equity and an in-depth equity plan for toll projects. And I was wondering if you're familiar with that and how it compares to the work that you've done already in the equity elements of the outreach, or what you have planned through the extension of this input period.
So I'd like to take that if that's okay, Councillor. We as state employees don't comment on pending legislation, or initiatives. So we're not able to comment on that current initiative.
Are you, well, can you say if you're familiar with it or not?
Sure, we do get requests to read the initiatives and provide information on objective information on impacts and outcomes, but we're generally not permitted to be able to comment on those on that legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mayor Milch.
I have a similar question to the one that was asked by Commissioner Savas. Is there a way to determine what portion of your estimate of you're estimating a major reduction in congestion on the freeways? What portion of that do you attribute to the widening of the freeways, and what portion of that reduction do you attribute to the financial disincentives of having tolling? And I guess the sort of the same thing for the mitigation. If you are actually able to reduce congestion by widening the roads, that could reduce the need that some people have to divert to local roads. But on the other hand, the financial disincentives themselves may be enough of a motivator to avoid getting on the freeway. So can you give me a rough estimate of what proportion of these two different kind of impacts result in the numbers that you came up with?
Appreciate that question, Mayor, and I can let you know that our analysis, again, it looks at the tolling at both of the bridges while doing the third lane and the other improvements. So it's a combined project, and the analysis is presented accordingly. We do look at different times of travel, both in terms of congestion and mobility on I-205 in the local system. Much of our analysis shows that, we know today there's a tremendous amount of diversion, and we know if we do nothing, that diversion that's existing today will get worse. When we move forward with the toll project, what we find is that there's less diversion during peak hours because 205 will function well, and many people are willing to pay the toll to get the trip that they want to take. And that there is diversion during off-peak hours, and some of that diversion leads to impacts, and some of it does not.
Thank you.
Great. Mr. Myers.
Thank you for a nice presentation. I have two quick comments and two quick questions. One question from me and one from a constituent who's listening in. First of all, Mayor Buck made reference to the tri-party agreement in the Stafford area. I believe that the Stafford CPO and the Stafford Hamlet are also going to be very interested in how you respond to his comments. And I'd like to ask that they be included in that discussion, or at least to understand what materials you're actually talking about. I can either provide that information, how to contact them, or I think Trent can do it also. The second thing is just a quick comment on collection of, and it falls under the equity umbrella. Depending on how ODOT characterizes the claim that it has resulting from a non-payment of a toll, that claim can either be non-dischargeable or dischargeable in a bankruptcy proceeding. The determination is whether or not it's characterized as an unsecured non-priority claim or whether it's considered a penalty. If it's a penalty, the ODOT claim for tolls will compete on plans in bankruptcy cases on equivalence with maintaining the home and mortgage and things like that. So I request as a matter of equity, it be characterized as an unsecured non-priority claim in its collection efforts. First question is mine. At prior meetings, we came to understand that in whole or in part, local trips, local traffic would not be considered in mitigation considerations. We presented at that time several arguments why this maybe didn't make sense for our particular region. Geographic considerations, I'm thinking of Westland Hills and I-2FA passing under that and between that and the river. I'm also thinking about the way the roads in our area have simply been constructed. And here is my example, is the way 213 at the north end simply terminates onto on-ramps onto I-205. I see in your presentation that you are now in some way maybe have changed that position. I'm wondering if you could give us a quick overview on that, or a little bit more of a dive into how local traffic, local trips will come into diversions. And my last question is, and I only can tell you what I've been told, and that is, I'm asking whether or not any modeling has been done on runs at the mid-cost level, both off time and at rush hours, and what the results of that might be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Myers. I would do my best. It's getting late, and so I'm trying to keep a mental note of your comments and questions. I will just say, in terms of your first comments about collection and enforcement, I'd encourage you to keep tabs on the statewide toll rulemaking advisory committee that is currently meeting. So that is a topic that they will be covering in terms of making recommendations for the commission to consider about rulemaking related to collection and enforcement. So that is not a topic that is covered in the NEPA process or the environmental assessment, but is a topic that is underway in terms of how to set up our toll program for Oregon. And happy when I do my follow-up to send a link to that committee with the other materials for Trent to share with you all. In terms of diversion and analysis of the local system, that has always been part of our process, and what we were planning to evaluate as part of the NEPA process. So we have done that, and that is well documented now and in our environmental assessment in terms of diversion and local system. So I hope that you're able to look through that in more detail. And then you'll remind me of the last part of your question there.
I think you said you would follow up with the Stafford CPO and Hamlet.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. And then the final one was whether ODOT has done any modeling at the mid-cost level for both off hours and rush hours, and what the results of those studies were.
Yes, thank you for the reminder. We, again, are working with Metro to do the modeling for this project, and we are looking at a variable rate toll that would vary according to a set schedule, with the highest toll during the PM peak hours in the afternoon, and the lowest toll overnight or hours when there's no congestion, and in between tolls based on kind of the shoulder of the peaks and other times of the day. So the analysis that we present in the document is the result of that variable rate toll and the traffic patterns that result.
Commissioner Savas. You are muted, sir.
Thank you, Mandy. In your first or second slide, you make the case, which I don't disagree, that declining gas tax revenues are impacting, the revenue stream for ODOT for a number of reasons. And not dissimilar, as you know, every dollar of gas tax is divided along the state. 50 cents for every dollar goes to the state, 30 cents to the counties, and 20 cents for the cities. So that's our lifeblood for our jurisdictions to maintain the roads. Your study also acknowledges there is diversion, which means that people are going to be incented, as the mayor from Gladstone pointed out, to divert on our local roads, which means wear and tear. So could you answer me the question, as a result of that, will there or will there not be revenue sharing?
Again, that will be a policy discussion and conversation. And I know, Commissioner Savas, that you and others around this table are also part of the Regional Toll Advisory Committee that we have to discuss policy issues and provide input to ODOT Director Strickler. So the criteria to think about revenue allocation will be a key topic of conversation in the months moving forward for that committee. And those are conversations still to be had as we move forward.
Thank you.
Metro Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thanks. I just want to share that I feel a little frustrated because some of the answers tonight just don't feel satisfactory. And I think we're going to all have to follow up with our agency staff for written comment to that effect. But in particular, just taking the redirection towards RTAC for revenue sharing. I am an alternate for my agency, so I am, invisible. You can't see that I'm there, but I'm listening. And that discussion has happened at RTAC, but that discussion has happened saying that RTAC is the wrong table for even that decision. So it feels a little disingenuous to point this group there, where if we take our concerns to that table, ODOT staff, not you, wave fingers all other different directions. So I understand that this isn't the right table necessarily for every single solution-oriented discussion, but please be more clear when there are things that are out of the scope of where we can have an impact, because revenue sharing is very clear right now. ODOT is not open to having local input on that discussion. You've set a bunch of tables. You come generally in good faith, but that is not something you're coming in good faith with, working towards locals being included in how revenue will be split or shared.
I hear the frustration, Councilor Lewis, and appreciate the comment. I will say that, as here to talk about the NEPA process and the environmental assessment, again, it's not a policy document. And so that sort of comment, I'm happy to try to answer the best that I can, but it's not one that is directly part of the environmental assessment. My understanding based on the last meeting and the conversation at RTAC is that the charter was approved and that there is a key question and aspect of the work plan that looks at the criteria for revenue allocation and the input to provide to the director. So I am not trying to just, pass the buck or move you to another place, but that is a conversation that will continue at the RTAC table. And then ultimately there'll be a decision from the Transportation Commission down the road.
Great, thanks. I do appreciate that you individually have been so focused on the EA. The rest is outside of where your focus has been and where the conversation tonight has been. So I can appreciate that, but I think the broader theme of there's more that we're going to be following up with still applies. Thanks.
Okay, well, Della, go ahead.
Yeah, just hearing the comments here today and appreciate the technical and robust understanding of the environmental assessment and the process to date, and the ability of my colleague Mandy to answer a lot of the questions here today, but also hearing frustration, still understanding that there are concerns moving forward with the document as it is. And this is an opportunity, and we invite you all to make comment and have your comments seen and reviewed by our federal partners as well. This is an important time to ensure that that you are being heard, that your input is being recorded and being addressed. And we'll be following up with a lot of the outstanding items that we've had here to date so far. And again, appreciate the partnership along the way, understanding that it's been a long journey to get to this point in this document, and we have farther to go in the next year and a half or so before the tolls would be collected. And a lot of policy decisions, again, through some of those committees, the statewide rural advisory committee, I guess it's the statewide toll rural advisory committee, the STRAC. We'll make sure that you have a link to that committee and see those agenda items. I think those will be that'll be a committee that this group would be interested in and observing over the next several months as they continue to make recommendations to the Commission on rate setting and policy, as well as the Regional Toll Advisory Committee, which does provide input to the director. And I will concur with Mandy. There is the idea of revenue sharing is one of the topics for that conversation, to provide input to Director Strickler on that topic. So I want to thank you all again, and please encourage you to make those comments, have your staff make comments, your constituents. We do want to make sure that this program is the best program it can be for Oregonians and for those of us in the Portland metro area and those using our facilities in the region. So thank you very much for today and for having us.
Della, thank you very much. Mandy, also great job. I know this is not fun all the time, but you guys are all been very consummate professionals, and it's tough to be the messenger on this particular topic for this long. And but I do appreciate you, Mandy, a lot with all that you've been doing to go back and forth between the various coordinating committees and legislature and all those people that are making decisions. So there's a lot here. We as a group are heard time and time again in the process here, and it's gonna be an interesting ride still to go. So ask questions. I'm sure if you've got more, please work with your staff. I know the Commissioner Salvis can maybe speak, Frank can, but I know that the Board of County Commissioners are neck deep in this as well. And I know city county staff are tearing apart the EA in depth on what the impacts are going to be, on what this report says on a county level. So please have your teams coordinate with as well, so that we can be fruitful in our responses. Okay. Again, Mandy, Della, Jody, thank you very much for being here tonight, and I'm sure we will see you soon.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Wilson, your hand is up, sir.
Thank you. So just confirming that I will, I've already reached out to Jody to receive the PowerPoint presentation. I will send it to this group as soon as I have it. We'll post this recording on Monday. Your process moving forward is that at your I-205 diversion subcommittee meeting on March 15, will be a little bit of an open forum to talk about, that group will be able to talk about what it recommends C4 to comment on, which we'll be planning for your April 6th C4 meeting. And so the original comment period ended on April 7th. So that was within the original timeline already. That was our plan. the 15-day extension that ODOT issued today does not extend into your May meeting. And so really the comment period is the same for C4 with that small extension because your subcommittees are not voting bodies. So at this time, unless a further extension is granted, I'll be aiming for your April 6th meeting for when you will look at your comment letter. It'll be based on some of your questions today, whatever comments come out of the diversion subcommittee meeting on March 15. And we'll do our best to craft something in time for your April 6th meeting and try to have it to you a week in advance so that there's some review in it. As this was described today, it's a pretty technical document. We'll be working with county staff to give you our best. And then, of course, the balance will be the comments that we made today that this is a technical document, not a policy document, and this is a policy body. So it'll be a fun middle ground to take, and I'll do our best to help you get there.
Right, thank you. And you know how well this group likes to split that hair.
Indeed.
Right. Well, we'll move into the last bit of our agenda here this evening, and that is updates and other business. How about an update on JPAC?
All right. Yeah, I'll give a quick update here. We've got the kind of JPAC approved this preferred alternative or adopted a preferred alternative for the Burnside Bridge project that's going to be underway. So, retrofitting a whole new bridge, really making it seismically safe, adding their safe multimodal features, etc. Which is great news for our friends over there. Obviously, we also talked about, of course, what we just talked about here. At the time, of course, it hadn't been released, but the I-205 EA, and again the call for projects, which we also just talked about here tonight. Kind of the timeline for those and how they go forward, and that was kind of the focus of the impact meeting.
Impact.
With Councillor Sherman out, I can give a brief update on MPAC unless others would like to weigh in, or in addition to others weighing in. It was the first meeting for several new elected representatives. And so there was some overview conversation around the role of MPAC, the process around the UGB boundaries being examined every 6 years. A little bit of conversation about reserves and the update on UGB land exchange. And then this group may also be aware of the new features in the 2040 Urban Growth Report, but I'll share those. That includes a development pro forma to assess growth capacity, including middle housing estimates, which is the implementation of House Bill 2001, housing needs by income group, existing and future housing needs, and consideration of economic aspirations and forecast. So, and I know that there were others that may have been watching or listening. So if there's anything else that you'd like to add, go ahead.
As a member of MPAC, I agree with everything that Brent said. It was another one of those long lecture type meetings where we did a lot of listening and not much talking.
And Ed, I know that you love those kind of meetings.
Oh, I look forward to them.
Mayor Milch.
I just wanted to know, Rebecca, is a video of that meeting available to those of us who were unable to attend?
A video will be available. It wasn't when I last checked, but let me check really quickly while we're in this meeting. And if it's available, I'll put a link in the chat.
Okay, I know that sometimes these meetings are actually on the Clackamas County channel that I can see on Comcast, and I didn't know if what level that went down to.
Yeah, I'll check their page and see if I can get something.
Thank you. Thanks.
Councilor Lewis.
Sure, just to help with how our metro meetings get broadcast. Our advisory meetings are obviously available through Zoom in real time, and then recordings are posted, but they're not for our cable. Cable just goes to our voting meetings generally on Thursdays.
Okay, perfect. Climate Action Plan Task Force
we didn't, we haven't met, but our last and final supposedly meeting is right before the C4 meeting in April on the 6th.
Okay, well, stay tuned. All right, any other business that anyone wants to share? Trent, go ahead.
Yes, me, please. So thank you all all of you who just did the survey during this meeting. Appreciate that very much. It's a little bit more directive on what we'll be working on for the retreat. Here are the results of the 3-question survey. The first question, are you a C4 member? Everybody who took the survey was a C4 member. Thank you. But the primary topic that was of most interest to this group of the 4 options, which was I-205 tolling, economic development, transit, and then housing and houselessness. The primary topic of interest is for I-205 tolling coordination. Not surprised. Could have just been like slanted because of the topic tonight, but I don't think so. And then the other topic that received second preference, and we usually have 2 primary topics at the retreat, but the other topic was housing and houselessness. So what I'll do from here is to take these 2 topics and present to you some sort of agenda in your upcoming meetings and start preparing those materials and those conversations. Yes, Mayor Beck.
Trent, I know we're at the time, but I mean, so we had, here we had the conversation on the EA and some of the us in the county, had a meeting with Chair Smith. We were talking about coordination on tolling, and it's just, we have, this one big piece of legislation that Senator Meek has introduced that's having trouble getting traction, down there in Salem. And a couple other, Representative Hartman, Representative Walters have both introduced other side pieces. They're not going anywhere, So I don't know if we should be doing coordination, in advance of this retreat. I mean, the time it's really tough. I don't know. I'm just getting the sense that there's a lot of frustration down in Salem, and they're laser focused on the housing package, and the semiconductor work, and they don't really want to talk about this tolling at all. I don't know if anyone else has any other assessment, but it's like the time to strike is now. I feel like the longer we go out,
That's a good assessment, Mayor Buck. I think you're right that there is a lot of conversation around the introduced bills that are out today. Almost every Clackamas legislator has a bill about I-205 or tolling. There's not really a united legislative front at this time. And the Clackamas caucus plans to meet in the coming weeks or so to talk about that and figure out how to hone that in. I guess my feeling is, to your point, that the EA just came out. Lots of information is available right now. Lots of people are just starting to assess it. As Mandy and Della just said, this is their first presentation to anybody about it. So I still recommend that if you're thinking about like engaging now, continuing these conversations with your delegation members, your representatives, is good to helping them hone in what they're after. But here is a coordinating body, you're as a group, that has the opportunity to like dive a little deeper in the CA, figure out what's going on, maybe come back in your April meeting to coalesce around some sort of approach. But frankly, my read and working with our government affairs friends in my role is that this I-205 tolling transportation funding conversation is really going to get traction later in session. And my expectation is that if there's going to be a funding package for a bridge, it's going to be probably the last thing that happens, maybe in the middle to late part of June, which is why we had recommended early on that the early part of June be when your C4 retreat happens. I still believe that. I think that's probably my best recommendation. Your delegation might need some help to hone things in the coming months, and maybe that's what we can talk about for the April meeting. But I would use this time, or I would recommend that you use this time here in April, or I'm sorry, here in March, to get deep into the EA, let the legislation sort itself out, and encourage, whatever help you can with your delegation members, because there's a lot of different ideas about how to solve the 205 problem right now. That's my recommendation, is to wait. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I concur with Trent. Typically, Mayor, in watching this for many years now, the transportation bills or legislation gets passed in the closing days. Really, it's always very late. And my guess is, because as controversial as this is, it will also be late, because once they make that decision, I don't think they're going to want to face the music, perhaps. So that's typical. I agree that the thing that's moving the most right now are probably the any kind of the homeless measures, land use related to that, and the chips. I expect a lot of action early on that, and maybe a little bit following. But for the most part, I think a majority of that is going to be focused now in the next month or two, and transportation again coming a little bit late. To Mayor Hodgson's earlier point, yes, we're putting a lot of staff and consultants on going through the EA currently. So we're doing a lot of groundwork internally. So you all know that, but any kind of coordination or concerns that the cities have individually, please reach out to us to make sure we're working together and we're bringing out whatever the concerns are, issues are that you're seeing. We may not catch everything. So I think it's coordinate on that level too with your staff would be great. Thank you.
One more thing to add for me, and I guess Commissioner Savage sort of touched on it, is that there's a lot going on here at the county, and my role is to help you with C4 and a lot of local government affairs work, but I also help with our state and federal government affairs work as well, which is bursting with to-do lists. And so we are working internally to create some capacity for me, and that includes a person named Everett Wild, who's going to be helping me with C4 work over the coming months. And so you will maybe see me interspersed with Everett over the coming months, and you might see him more than me over the coming months. I'm not going away. I'm just letting you know that we're doing some capacity sharing here to make sure that you have what you need and that nothing's getting missed at the state and federal level, which is part of my role with working with Chris, but also here helping you be successful at the C4 table. So don't want you to be surprised if it's not my face next month or if it's some combination of things, but I want you to at least be aware that there's some transition and capacity sharing happening here at the county.
Yeah, if we could just acknowledge Trent for all of his hard work. It's not like he's going away, but he's coming back, right? But they're all doing so much work. Everett as well. I mean, all of our staff at the county are doing a lot of work. I just want to acknowledge the hard work you've done, Trent, and keeping C4 afoot and keeping things flowing. We appreciate it.
Yeah, most definitely, Trent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've been doing C4 for 8 years. I love it. This is great work. You're all excellent people. I don't want to go away. It's just capacity right now. Commissioner Morrow.
We appreciate everything.
Just really quickly to our co-chairs and maybe to Trent as well. I was just wondering where the conversation has gone in regards to getting back in person. I think it would probably be nice to get a couple in before some of you have to pay tolls to get here to Oregon City. So I was just wondering where that conversation was.
We're going to cut through, Adam, don't worry.
We tried to have that one event in West Lynn that Trent scheduled, and there was not, at least at that one, there was an opportunity to get together, not necessarily as a C4 meeting per se, but something that was a little bit more casual, just to have some networking and some opportunities. So I hope that's not indicator that there's a willingness or not to meet in person, but maybe we can just do a straw poll right now with a raise of hands. How many people are actually interested in meeting in person and if so, when? But let's I like to meet in person, frankly, but I don't know about the rest of you. This is terribly convenient, but it's also nice to be in person.
I would say qualify that with periodically, because driving that far in rush hour is a very strong memory from when I was on council before. It's the thing I remember the most.
Yeah, Mayor, you have a lot of I-5 traffic. When is it, knowing our meetings are at 6:45, it's still pretty heavy on I-5 at 6:30 or so, or 6 o'clock?
Well, I do want to meet who knows? Are we going to get that all cleared up soon? We won't have any more traffic, so it won't be a problem. But actually, I would like to come to some meetings. I just think that it's going to be nice if we can mix it up. That's my thought.
Okay. Mayor Hodgson, any ideas?
No, to Julie's point, I work in Beaverton and, the last couple of nights, 217 and I-5 have been great. To be able to get to Canby, or even the swing 205. I'd like to see us get back to in-person meetings. I think we lose some, I think we lose something by not meeting face to face. So if that's something, maybe we go to a quarterly basis or once a quarter, even, if we can get together, that would be great. We've better, I think, as a group here on Zoom and than in other groups that I've been a part of. So, I'd be all for trying to orchestrate at least once a quarter to see if we can make that work.
Well, all the more reason to attend the C4 retreat, which will be 100% in person. No virtual access that I'm aware of at this time in the planning. Some context here is that one of the reasons we've not been able to convert back to in-person so far is it's really challenging in the room that we used to meet in. Some of the technology needs are still being updated over there, and there's no ability to record or do the sound, like the microphones are not working. So that's just a technical thing that we're trying to navigate here at the county, which would make this a less inclusive meeting for folks who are trying to dial in or Zoom in. And so that's a big hurdle that we want to make sure is cleaned up before we get back into that room or the correct room, is to be able to have these to be recorded, viewed online if people aren't able to make it, so that the attendance can still be full. We're working on that. I'm thinking about it a lot. And so I want y'all to know that this is not something that we're sort of sitting on the shelf. We are waiting for something to happen for the right room that has a group this big. There's not very many rooms like that here at the county. So we're trying to figure that out. Happy to do a social gathering, as Commissioner Morrow sort of described what we were sort of aiming for that first time. That's a lot easier to do, at least picking a place and just meeting up. So I can take this feedback. We can work with me and the new person who's coming in. They're not new, they've been around, Everett. We'll figure it out and get back to you with some recommendations at the next meeting.
And on that note, Trent, I think it perhaps goes without saying, but the retreat will not be virtual. It'll be in person exclusively, correct?
Correct.
Right. Okay.
And everybody's invited who registers, and your entire city council or commission is welcome to come.
All right. Any other business? And once, twice, third time. All right. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Martin, seconded by Callahan. Perfect. All y'all, it's been great. Thank you for the questions on the tolling piece and the EA. Please work with your teams and staff to get that digested. Team to reach out to the county. All right, everyone have a great evening and see you in April. Good night.